Hello and welcome back. My name is Ashley and I'm a mom of two little girls. I have a 6-year-old named Kylie and I also have a 4-year-old named Mia. For today's video, I'm going to be answering a question that I received recently from a parent in Germany, and it reads as follows. Hello, my name is Yvonne and my daughter is 9 months old. My question is about handling situations where she, for example, falls or hits her head a little bit and she starts crying. As far as I've learned until now, it's good to hold or hug her and give the emotion a name, and to tell her that it's okay if it hurts and that it is okay if she starts crying or if she gets angry. I have trouble explaining this to my husband, how to handle these kinds of situations. We are a very communicative family and we talk about everything, so if I have the right words to explain to my husband why it's good not to tell her things like everything is going to be okay, or that she's not hurt that much, or that there is no reason to cry, it will be very helpful. I think it's not our place to tell her that something doesn't hurt that much. So I really love this question because this is something that every parent has to deal with. Their child is inevitably going to fall down or hit their head or hurt themselves in some way at some point, and if your children are anything like mine, multiple times in a single day. And as a Montessori parent, we want to know that we're responding appropriately. And sometimes it's hard to communicate to other people who may not be as experienced with the Montessori approach why we do it a certain way. So I'm kind of hoping to shed some light on that for you today. So from one busy parent to another, let's talk about how to respond as a Montessori parent when your child gets hurt. So I just want to start off by saying that I don't think there's anything inherently Montessori about this particular question or my response to it, but I do know that Montessori parents typically tend to fall into this category of like gentle, positive discipline, conscious parenting, gentle parenting, whatever label you want to put on it. And generally, all of those parenting styles tend to show acceptance of a child's feelings, regardless of what the situation may be. And getting hurt falls into that as well. So typically you will see Montessori parents kind of all responding in this same way as the parent described. So just to kind of quickly review that, in case this is your very first introduction to this concept, when a child falls down, when they get hurt, when they trip over something, anytime where they are hurt or scared by something that has happened to them physically and they become upset by it, or maybe they start to show fear and they come to you for comfort, or they start crying and screaming, whatever their emotional response is. In a traditional way, parents are typically very quick to be like, oh, it's okay, you're all right, oh, it's not that big of a deal, look, you're not even bleeding, like, you're okay, you're gonna be fine, it wasn't that big of a scratch. Like, we tend to dismiss their feelings, or on the flip side of that, we try to distract them. Like, we see that they're upset and we feel really uncomfortable with the fact that they're upset. We don't know how to handle or respond to those kinds of feelings. So we see ourselves trying to distract them, like, oh, look, here's this fun toy, look, it's okay. And we're trying to get them to stop crying, I think, is what is kind of at the core of our response. Again, because typically we feel uncomfortable with our child's big emotions around these kinds of situations. And a lot of that likely stems from the fact that that is how our own parents responded to us. And so we were never taught as young children that it's okay to feel that way and that it's okay to have big emotions when we are hurt or scared. And so we tended to stuff those feelings down after a certain time, and then that's kind of just become ingrained into us. So when our child has those same kinds of feelings, we tend to kind of like those feelings bubble up again for us on like a subconscious level, and it makes us feel really uncomfortable. And so we go to this place of dismissing our child's feelings and trying to make light of it, or trying to distract them. So from a Montessori parent perspective, we kind of approach this situation differently. As this parent very accurately described, we are there to show our support of our child's experience. So we're getting down, we're acknowledging what happened. We're saying, oh, I see that you fell down. You got hurt. You've got a little scratch on your knee. Or if maybe like, I don't know, their chair tipped sideways or something, and maybe they aren't hurt, but you could see that it was really scary for them, like, and that they're just crying because of like what happened, then we might acknowledge that and say, oh, I see you fell out of your chair. That was really scary, huh? And so we're just acknowledging what's going on. We're not dismissing it. We're not saying we agree with it either. We're just saying we saw what happened. Because ultimately, especially with babies and toddlers, They really just want to feel seen. They want to feel understood, that somebody is acknowledging their perspective and validating that perspective as normal. Nobody wants to be made to feel like their feelings are not appropriate, because they're just feelings. They are emotions. All of the emotions are part of the human experience, whether they are the good emotions or the bad ones. And honestly, I would encourage you not to label them as good or bad, but I'm just saying that from a general sense of our own background experience. Typically as adults, we kind of feel like the ones that involve crying and anger are the bad feelings. So we want to aim to accept all of the feelings, whether or not we are comfortable with them or not. And when we can do that, then that communicates to our child that all of these feelings are normal and that they are okay to have. We all experience them. And that as the confident leader that we are supposed to be for our child, that we can handle those kinds of feelings when our child has to go through them, when they're processing those kinds of feelings. We can handle it. It's not a big deal to us. They need to know that we are not shaken by them expressing those kinds of feelings in front of us. We have to be their rock, their safe place. So as this parent said, she's learned that it's okay to hold that space for her child to have those kinds of reactions, to maybe offer her a hug if she wants one, or just to kind of be there to hold her, to let her know that she saw. Maybe she doesn't even really need to say anything, but if she is saying something, that it's saying it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel scared. I saw what happened. And then just kind of leaving it at that. So I want to caution you at this point, if again, this is your first time kind of really being introduced to this style of responding to a child, that you don't need to go overboard. You're not like going into this mode of coddling and like, oh, that was so scary, I know. Because that's, I think, only going to add to our child's feelings of upset and fear or whatever it is. You just want to come in kind of neutrally. Like, I saw what happened. Yes, that was scary. You fell out of your chair. I'm here for you. You're safe now. And you're just holding that space for them to take as long as they need. Because as we know, sometimes children will fall down and get hurt. And in our minds as adults, we're like, okay, it happened 10 minutes ago and you're still crying. Like, why aren't you over it already? That's kind of our internal dialogue, right? But we don't want to rush them through this process that they need to go through. Some children will be over it very quickly and they can move on. That's great. Other children are going to need a little bit longer. They might need to cry and just kind of whine about it for the next 5 or 10 minutes, knowing that they have your support, and then eventually they'll be able to get over it. But every child is different. So your only role really in these kinds of situations is to accept their feelings, validate those emotions and their experience, that you saw what happened, let them feel seen. And you might do that through a short verbal phrase like I just shared a few examples of, or you might just say, oh, I saw, and then that's it. You can be quiet after that and just kind of stay there with your presence and offering them support through just your physical proximity and physically being there for them. And then the second part of your role is to just wait, to just be there to support them until they've gone through that whole roller coaster of emotions and they have come back to that place of calm and that they're ready to move on from what happened. And that's it. It is not our job to fix the situation. It is not our job to, find a way to make them feel better necessarily. Of course, if you feel like offering them like, we call it a boo-boo ice in my house, like a little frozen teether thing that they can put on the bruise or whatever, you could do that, certainly. But it's not your job to fix it all, It's only your job to just be there to support them. You also don't have to make them stop crying. Again, crying is healthy. That is how children process their emotions. That's how they communicate, especially when they are babies and toddlers, before they are quite verbal and they don't have labels and words to describe what they're feeling. They just have to cry. That's how they get it out. And so to tell them that they shouldn't be crying and that it's not that big of a deal, that's dismissing their experience and not validating that what they're feeling is completely normal and human. So we don't need to make them stop crying. We just need to be there for them until they are ready to stop crying on their own. So something that I think often is helpful in trying to explain this to somebody who is not as well-versed in this style of parenting is to kind of help them see it from a child's perspective, get into their shoes for a minute by giving them an example that they are familiar with as an adult. So one of the things that I was thinking of as I was getting ready to film this video this evening was, what if you were at work, right? And you just had a horrible, horrible day. Your boss yelled at you. You didn't get your work project turned in on time. Your lunch was just horrible and terrible. And so you're hungry and you're like over it. And by the time you get home, you burst in the door and your partner is there and you're just like, I had the worst day, this happened, my boss yelled at me, and you just like, you're going off, and maybe you get a little bit emotional because you're just like so stressed out, and that's your body's natural response to all of this extra cortisol that's been coursing through your veins all day. And if after all of that, what if your partner looked at you and said, oh, come on, it's not that bad. You're making such a big deal out of this, and it doesn't even really need to be like that. You are overreacting. Like, calm down. It's okay. You're fine. You would probably freak out. You'd be like, really? Because you expect this other person to just support you, even if they don't agree with what you're saying necessarily, even if they feel like, maybe you had something to do with the reason your boss yelled at you. You just want them to support you. You want them to say, yeah, man, that sounds like you had a really terrible day. You want them to commiserate with you a little bit. You don't want them to dismiss what you're feeling and tell you that you're overreacting, which is exactly what we do when our child gets hurt and we say, oh, you're fine, it's okay, look, it's not even that big of a scratch. That is exactly the same thing, but kind of in a child version. And we don't like to feel, it doesn't feel good when people respond to us that way, especially people that we love. We want to know that we can come to them with our feelings, no matter what those kinds of feelings are, and know that they are going to love us and accept us, even in spite of those times when they happen. And our children are the same. They want to know that we are going to love them and accept them and validate what they are feeling, no matter what, even if it is something that we're not necessarily comfortable with. So I really hope that example helps you to make sense of kind of the mind frame that we want to be in as parents when we come into these kinds of situations. Again, we're not trying to go overboard with our response in being there for them and really kind of like adding fuel to the fire. We want to try to be as neutral as we can, but we definitely don't want to go to that place where we're dismissing our child's feelings. We are acknowledging that we saw what happened and that, they are sad or scared, or maybe they're in a little bit of pain. We're acknowledging that. We're maybe getting them a Band-Aid or a boo-boo ice or something to make them feel better, or maybe they just need time and a hug and your physical presence. Every child, every situation is different, so you kind of have to feel it out on a case-by-case basis. And you know your child better than anybody else. You know if your child is a more hands-off kind of child that doesn't like that physical touch when they're upset. And in that case, it's okay to just remain nearby, to just show them that you're there. You're not completely walking away and leaving them alone to deal with their feelings, but you are respecting their personal space all in the same token. And then there are children who want to be close. They want to be pulled in for a snuggle when they are feeling scared or hurt. So you respond appropriately to what you know your child needs without going overboard, and making sure that they genuinely feel seen and understood through your response. They can very clearly tell through your body language and the words that you're using that you recognize that their experience is normal, their emotions are normal, and that you feel confident that they're going to be okay, but that you're there for them until they feel like they are ready to move on. All right, so I feel like that was a lot of mouth vomit. I hope all of it made sense to everyone who is watching this video, and I hope that you found it helpful. If you did, then please be sure to give this video a thumbs up. And if you'd like more practical tips and advice for implementing Montessori at home with your children, then you might also consider subscribing to my channel. This way you don't miss a new video. My book, The Montessori Home, Create a Space for Your Child to Thrive, is now available in paperback, ebook, and audiobook on Amazon and in all major book retailers. I also have several e-courses, an online community just for Montessori parents where I do live group coaching sessions once a month. And for anyone who is looking for more individualized support, I also offer private coaching sessions. So links to all of those resources will be in the description box down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.